back for another Pope Nugget from September 25th, and the Pope is at the Orion installation of World Trade Center 1 and 2, and he's looking very appropriately sad about about what happened here. If I could see this better, I could decode it. It looks like the Vatican symbol with the blue shield and the two crosses. It's the silver, the keys, the silver key and the gold key. That's the gate to this. The key to the silver gate is the gate that's between. It's at the tip of the arrow of Sagittarius, where the ecliptic of the solar system meets the galactic ecliptic, and that's esoteric astronomy, and that's believed to be by the Egyptians believed to be the place where souls enter for birth, and then the Golden Gate is where the souls exit for birth. And they might be talking about, Anunnaki souls. They might not be talking about human souls. So all these pictures are meant to help you believe, because humans are naturally herded into thoughts by groups. So if you see groups of people believing the Pope, or groups of people believing that 9/11 was done by Islamic terrorists, then you are likely to go along in that thought herd. So that's why they show the thought herd, because it's convincing for a lot of people and helps a lot of people just settle down into the idea of this. Now, she has a 55 on her head. Zachary K. Hubbard shows that in, I think it's Jewish gematria or Pythagorean gematria, that equals Satan. I think and I think he's right, that is that would be a shock or alarm number. And for me, I found this encoded in movies having to do with alarm, quake, Snape, or the moment of scariness, the moment where the movie music climaxes, and right at that point, usually the timestamp has a 55. Okay, so it's not a coincidence that they dedicate a whole picture to two white roses. It seems so innocent, doesn't it? But this, I want to show you that they will encode these. There's codes even in the photographs. Depends on the colors. Mr. Cotty's right. Colors are important. Directions, cardinal directions are important. All kinds of things. So we don't know the cardinal directions of these, but it's important. It's probably a 33-degree angle in here. But let's look at two white roses. Are you shocked to see 911 in that? 94 is a number that we just saw in a recent gematria that I did on another nugget. It's this one having to do with the date. When I put the date into the gematria, that was another nugget that I did today, a Pope nugget. Pope programming nugget, I should call them programming nuggets. So it has to do with the magician and Uranus. Now, the Pope often depicts himself, and the media depicts him as a magician. And every time you see the 144 number having to do with the 144,000 elect, having to do with the Pope, that is subliminally he's affecting your subliminal awareness of the frequencies, because you are subliminally aware of these frequencies. Manipulating these frequencies is a dark art. And that's why there's dark symbolism on this page, because it's referring to the manipulation. First of all, the whole English language is a dark art, because the whole English language manipulates the frequency codes. But the frequency codes, the frequencies arise naturally in our creation. Our creation is based on phi. It's fractal. It was created out of love. And these frequencies arise naturally, and you are aware of these frequencies because you were made for this creation. You were also created divinely, and that is why the dark uses these codes to manipulate your thoughts. And so I am using this calculator to show you what the codes are underneath and what the connections are. So, because then if you can use your conscious mind to realize that when you see two roses laying there, or just any photograph, and anytime you see any photograph, you're going to say, I bet you Dandelion could tell me what the code is on this photograph. And that just by thinking that, you become immune from that programming. And then Uranus is a 911. And then here's, this is covenant. This is very important. A lot of people don't realize that the word covenant has the word coven in it. It's a group of witches. And this ant is an oath. And some people don't think of Abraham being associated with witches, but if you think of child sacrifice or being willing to sacrifice a child for your witch god, then that pretty much fits the bill of what Abraham was up to. And Abraham made a covenant. Don't take oaths. Joshua taught us to do not take oaths. So, including covenants, especially not with people who want to sacrifice children. So the Pope associates himself also a lot with 99s. In my either my long 10-part Pope series or the short, super short series where I just basically take the 10-part and make it into smaller pieces, I show you again and again how the Pope associates himself with 99, 99, 99, 99. And that is a subliminal influence on you to tell you that he is at the top. He's achieved the 6 to the 9. He's free. If this is your first video with me, I've talked a lot about the F and the R having to do with the numbers 6 and 9, and that's the Freemason arch, and that means that the Pope is at the pinnacle of the balance of the 4 elements, and he's basically arrived, and therefore you should worship him. But this also matches Barack Obama as president and the Tetragrammaton, and I have a few Back to the Books videos about the Tetragrammaton showing that what that's actually about is worshiping pi. And that's why Pope Francis's name in the Jewish gematria also equals God is pi. It looks like that the Catholics are sun worshippers. They're not. They worship the home star of their god, which is Enki and Enlil, more on the Enlil side, but basically the same fallen Nephilim Anunnaki family. And that is not the sun. So it just simplifies it, and it just distorts it for people who are trying to figure out what's going on, to keep repeating those things. It's not right. It's not when George Washington is not wearing the moon. He is wearing an occluded exoplanet that is nearby that same sun, which we can call the Star of Ra. I'm not sure which sun it is, but I think it is the Star of Ra, because that's this in the ancient Egyptian artwork. They show Ra and Marduk Ra pointing to that star, and in the writing it says it's their origin. So that's, I believe, what they're worshiping. It's not the sun, it's not the moon. People need to get past that. People also need to get past reading a Vatican document like the Bible and trying to use that to make any sense out of anything. That's what you're supposed to read. The only way that you can read that is if you read it critically. Then you can find clues in it. It's like reading the newspaper. You only read it to figure out what do they want you to know. And also because they do put codes. These guys are Freemasons. They think they're gentlemen, and so they do put codes and tips and tricks and ciphers and ways to decipher things right in the surface of their news story. So right in the surface of this news story, there's going to be, this one, well, actually all of them, like this. But there's also going to be things, there's always something like, Obama tweets out, he invites Ahmed to Twitter seems to be famous for this, where somebody tweets out a response to a news event before the news event happens. That's just the Freemasons telling you, hey, excuse me, knock, 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 hey, dumb sheeplies, you can figure this story out, and here's your sign, and if you don't do it, you can't blame us, because we're making it obvious. So Twitter often does that. So that happened with the clock story, that happened also with the Allison Parker story. And so you can read the Bible that way. It's written by Freemasons. They also wrote it to each other, but they have code in it so that Freemasons can decode the code that's in the Bible. Lots of code in there. For example, Matthew 18:16. That's a phi number, and it has to do with the kingdom of God. That's there. So you can read the Bible and get clues, but you have to read it from the point of view of realizing that you are reading what they want you to read. So we could keep decoding this. This man has enough money, trillions and trillions of dollars in real estate. He lives in a place that has walls 100 feet high in some places. He is not of the people. He could solve all of these problems, with control of their bank account. the church that he just recently visited, St. Patrick's, they did, I'm trying to remember now, it was a $71 million renovation, on that church for his visit. How many poor people do you think that could feed? I mean, I love churches. I don't think it has to cost that much. They probably, everybody lined their pockets with that money, and then they just, used some Windex on a few things and brought in a few new pews. This guy can fix all these problems that he's talking about. He's an insider. And some people want to say it's the Zionists. Some people want to say it's the Jesuits. Some people want to say it's the Illuminati families. A lot of these families are fighting and they're arguing, but they're all basically in the same boat. They're fighting with each other, but you are not in any of those boats. All right, well, stay tuned for the next Pope Nugget. We're just going to take a look. I'd like to try to find, try to skim off the top, skim the numbers, because so many numbers are right on the top of these. So stay tuned for the next Pope Nugget, and you can learn more about what they are programming you with. Talk to you soon.